Hello and welcome to the Gratitude and Growth Podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Middich, and I am so happy you found your way here. Most of you probably know me as an actor, but what you might not know is I have been on the most transformative journey these last few years. And I've created this podcast to share the discoveries I've had and things I've learned and continue to learn about this wonderful journey we all call life and how to attain joy, peace, and ultimately freedom. Because I think that's what we're all striving for at the end of the day. I'm here to share some tools that can change your life, hone your mental discipline, and empower you to step into the highest version of who you want to be. I'm going to share my own journey of how I got here, but please do not live from my experience. My intention is for you to live from and create your own experience. Take what works, leave what doesn't. There is no right or wrong here. Just do you. Just be you. Okay? Alrighty, let's dive in. Hello, and welcome back to another episode. I hope you all had an incredible week, if you are catching these on the regular. Today, I want to dive into two topics that have really been coming up a lot for me lately in the last week and in the lives of a lot of people around me. And those are change and control. I'm going to start with control. Control is something that is a constant thing I'm working on in my life, and the sneaky ways my mind tries to find ways to lace control into everything that I do. I get to times where I truly relinquish all control and it feels amazing, but then it'll sneak up on me in new ways all of the time. I don't think there ever is a point of arrival when you're working on yourself. I just think it's accepting, understanding, and knowing all of these things about yourself so that you can name it when it's happening. By naming it, it gives you power over it, you know? Well, and the same is true for not naming it. For just letting stuff go and living life. That is also very powerful. Again, no right or wrong here. Choose what works for you. One of my biggest truths that I've realized is that two completely opposite things can exist at the exact same time and still both be true and still both be right. Okay, I know I said I was going to start with control, but we're going to dive into change now too. They're both correlated. Let's just go with that. Change is something I think we don't give ourselves or others the grace of doing often enough. Because change can't be controlled, and we love to control our lives and other people. We really do. Change is the complete opposite of control. It's unpredictable. And people like to know how their lives are going to pan out, from their Friday night plans to who they're going to marry. We like to have everything figured out so that we know externally that we'll be okay, that we'll be safe. This is what trying to control everything gives us. It gives us some semblance of security. Let me burst your bubble right now. There is no security in your external life. Nothing is secure. Nothing is safe. Not your job, your spouse, your family, your house, your living situation. Nothing. Everything is ever changing. The illusion of security is the illusion of control. We try to act like everything is under our control all the time. And most of it isn't. Externally. There's absolutely a part of it that is, but that part is inside of us. The only security you will ever have is inside of you. It's in the choices that you make that define who you are. It's in how you show up in any given moment. It's in observing and witnessing what your inner energy is doing. It's in what your breath is doing, your heart, your soul. It's in the present moment. For me, relinquishing control means you have self-trust. You trust yourself that you will always figure it out and that everything will work out as it's meant to. My anxiety goes higher, my need for control rises when I doubt that I can figure something out, when I doubt an outcome of something. But when I have trust in myself, in who I am, and I take action from that place, I always manage to figure it out. Always. Control and perfectionism are super linked for me. I used to be so wrapped up in perfectionism. I wanted to be so perfect all the time. And for me, being perfect meant that I had everything in control. I used to be OCD, I used to be type A, and I would pride myself on these things. I kept everyone and everything in my life in their perfect, clean, safe little boxes, labeled and placed exactly where I needed them. I did this so I could feel like I was okay, like life was going down the right path, like I was checking off all the boxes on the list of what life, quote unquote, should look like. Check, check, check. On paper, my life seemed perfect. I was doing all of the things I was taught and told I should do. But I was still so unhappy. I checked all these boxes and I still felt so empty. Like something was missing. And I felt this deep inner knowing that something wasn't what it was meant to be. And it kept building. For years, it kept building. And then my life got to a point where I finally decided to make a massive change because I couldn't handle that gnawing feeling anymore. Nowadays, I'll be honest and say my perfectionism totally still sneaks up. And most of the time, it sneaks up in my spiritual practices. The control gets its claws in there. It says, are you meditating enough? Doing enough breath work? Practicing yoga? Eating clean enough? Being present enough? Being grateful enough? Are you watching your words? Are you making sure you're thinking only positive thoughts? Honestly, the work truly never ends. And that's a beautiful thing. Again, the awareness is what it's all about. I didn't see it at first. I really didn't. All these sneaky ways that control was getting in there. And sometimes I find that I end up getting so rigid in my routine that I need to break it for a bit to make sure that, above all, I am living my life. I'm learning a lot about routine and the balance for me between my routine and just being. Just living a beautiful, present, healthy, simple, and amazing life. It's been something that keeps popping up these last couple months for me. But there's definitely something there, right? I think we can get so caught up in the work. And that's also how our control gets its claws in there. And it gets its claws in on the work that we're doing on ourselves that sometimes we forget to just live. Yeah, control's a tricky one. But I will say a big thing I've learned this past week for me is that spontaneity is the death of control for me. When I'm spontaneous, I'm free. When I'm resisting spontaneity, that's when I'm operating from a need to control. And that all the control I need in my life, I can provide for myself. Change is the only constant. Change and the unknown are the only things in this life that you can bank on. Everything in this life is temporary. The highs are temporary, the lows are temporary. You'll have days of immense presence and days of endless mental chatter. Days where you feel invincible and days where you can't seem to get off your couch. It's when we resist that, it's when we cling to the good times, the good days, that we experience fear and pain. And then our need for control amplifies because we don't want to experience fear and pain. Do you see how it's a cycle? Once I could accept and honor the fact that nothing in my life will remain the same, I started to stop fearing fear. I started to stop fearing pain. I began embracing the unknown. And how did I do that, you may ask? I did it because I realized the unknown is equal to infinite possibilities. It's equal to unlimited potential. This illusion of control keeps our lives the same and predictable because we think it's our job to figure everything out. Embracing the unknown becomes fun even because you embrace the fact that there are countless ways anything can pan out in your life. Yeah, it's super scary at first. Relinquishing control feels like chaos. And it's terrifying, especially if you're like me and you had everything in your perfect, clean little boxes. But you can transmute that fear into fun and just allow yourself to go along for the ride, all the ups and downs of it. And it also comes with an understanding that there is nothing to do in this life except to be. There is nowhere to go but here, the now, the present. When you are present, you don't need control because you're satisfied. I mean, if you think about it, we should always be changing, right? Because then we're evolving. This life is one endless, incredible cycle of growth. It's human nature to grow, to evolve. It's when we start to shut change down in us, in those around us, that we become stagnant and resisting. We're not meant to stay the same. Just look at the human body and how it evolves over the course of your life. Look at nature, the seasons, the cycles. Look at animals. Look at anything around and outside of you and study it for a bit. Everything is in constant change. But we try to shut it down. We try to resist it when really change is the most natural thing. I'm a wildly different person today than I was even before I started this podcast a month ago, let alone 6, 12, 18 months ago. So I'm giving you the grace to change with this episode. In fact, I encourage it. There's no rule book that says you have to stay exactly as you are forever. It's only humans that put that pressure on each other. But here's the thing. You don't owe anyone anything. That might sound harsh, but it's true. Not your family, your spouse, your boss, your job, your anyone. The only person you owe anything to at the end of the day is you. This is your life. You get to write your own ever-changing, ever-evolving rule book. You don't have to subscribe to living your life on autopilot. Break away. If you've been feeling that call to change and you've been resisting it, follow it, lean into it, and just see what happens. Disclaimer here, though. Change is hard when you want to become the highest version of yourself for multiple reasons. But one is because people will see you changing and maybe they don't want you to. Because then you also change their life and their expectations of you. Maybe they like you as you are because you fit in their perfect little box that lets them control their life. And that can be so hard. Legit, so hard. Especially when you're going from perfectionism to what feels like complete chaos. When you change, you hold up a mirror to those around you. You trigger change in their lives. And the thing is, they may not want it. And that's their right too. They don't have to take it. And it can be a lonely path. Healing, self-actualization, self-realizationing, awakening, whatever you want to call it, is a lonely path. And I don't think people talk about that enough. I ended up doing a lot of this changing evolutionary work on my own. I had to pull back in different ways at different times with different people because the evolution kept going. And as I look back at it now, that initial period of change was so fast for me. I was learning so much about myself and I had to sit with that without the outside world and its voices. Because something was going on inside of me that I didn't have the vocabulary to explain yet. And I was determined to do the work. I was really determined to do the work on myself this time around and to have it stick. And my mental discipline wasn't sharp yet. And I was so susceptible, I was so impressionable to all of those around me and their opinions and their thoughts that I had to pull back and just figure it all out on my own. Okay, the picture that comes to mind is a caterpillar's cocoon. I had to cocoon myself and do all the work without the outside world getting its thoughts in there. And then I could break out of it and become the beautiful butterfly that I am today. Corny, but also true. And even once you've done a big change, here's another thing. Ready for it? You're allowed to continue to change. You can change your mind or your opinion on any topic whenever you want. You can change your hair, your weight, your job, your partners, your religion, your political views, however and whenever you want. Again, there's no actual rule book that says once you say one thing, it has to be your truth on it forever. Give yourself the grace to change your mind and your heart on things, from the big things to the small things. And on the same note, give others the grace to change their minds. They don't owe you anything either. Remember that. Are you holding people to something that they did 5 years ago, or somehow they behaved 5 years ago? Are you allowing them to change? Or are you holding them in a box that maybe they don't fit in anymore, but you can't see that? It's when we want to stunt others' change, others' growth, others' exploration, that I think relationships start to fall apart. Their change may or may not have anything to do with you. And even if it is about you, process that, accept it, let go, and move on as you're able to. Support other people's curiosity, their desire to switch things up. I bounce from phase to phase. I bounce from extreme to extreme. I've realized that this is how I process things, and this is how I learn. I went through a phase for months where I didn't drink any alcohol, like at all. I was a vegetarian for a year. Now I eat meat on and off again. Some months I'll drink some alcohol, some months I don't want to drop. Sometimes I want to be social, sometimes I want to hermit and completely disconnect. Sometimes I want to go to bed at 9 p.m. and other times I want to go dance my heart out until 2 a.m. I am always changing. I am always evolving, and I am always exploring. And so I give others in my life the grace to do the same. When other people's change bothers us, it's because we're taking it personally. We're making their change about us, when really it's all about them. Which brings me to another point. Don't take anything in life personally. For the most part, people aren't thinking about you or how their life affects you. They're just trying to do the best that they can under their given set of circumstances. They're working on their own things, they're making their own changes, and maybe they need some help and kindness to be able to do that. So many times people try to shut down change in others because it's threatening to themselves. Again, I go back to this idea that the unknown is all we really have. You'll never be able to change or control someone else. The only person you can change is you. And the only thing you can control is how you experience this life from within. A note on relationships that I am in ever learning about, if that's even a phrase. Ever changing, forever learning. Whatever. That's my mashup. Ever learning. I went through a phase where I was so against the concept of marriage that it felt like a trap, because I had realized I will continue changing for the rest of my life. I know I will, and I embrace that. In fact, I want that. I want to keep exploring new things inside and out. I want to keep trying different ways of living and different ways of being. But I feel like so few people actually understand what that's like, and when they don't, I feel like I let them down whenever I decide to change things up, whenever I decide to be spontaneous, to try something new. And yes, that is me taking it personally. I get that, and I'm working on it in real time. But I can't guarantee someone one single predictable version of who I'm going to be forever. And I can't put myself back in that clean, safe little box for someone so that they can feel comfortable, so that they can feel safe. And then a friend said something to me a while ago, like a year and a half ago, that I'm only now actually understanding in a very real way. When I told her that I thought marriage is a trap, she said to me, "That's interesting. I think when you marry someone, you sign up for like 7 different versions of that person, or however many versions there's going to be." I didn't believe it. I couldn't imagine a relationship where I had the freedom to be all of me and the freedom to continue growing and changing however I wanted to. I could intellectually understand it, but I couldn't believe it back then. I'm beginning to. And that feels really nice. And it also continually reminds me to give my partner the grace to change as often as he wants, on whatever he wants, and to support in that. And just because we're both changing, just because we're both going to change, doesn't mean that our bond changes. It's when we stop our partners from embracing the change they're yearning for that the bond begins to break, begins to alter. In giving our partners that freedom, I feel like we actually do add some type of external security, because it's not about loving one version of someone. It's about loving who they are underneath it all. It's about loving their evolution. And look, we're all just reflections of each other, and relationships are the biggest mirrors you will ever get. They are the mirrors that can bring to light the most profound work you need to do on yourself if you're willing to let them. The things that most bother us in others is usually the thing that most bothers us about ourselves. The same is true for family, for friendships. So now I try to look at it as signing up for multiple different versions of everyone in my life. And I think that's a beautiful thing, even if it does affect my life somehow. I enjoy sitting and observing and seeing where and how they go and who they become. And I'll tell you one thing I will never change on. I will always do my best to choose love. I will aim to choose love for everything and everyone. I will aim to choose love in every choice I make. I've made this vow to the universe. And so, probably the only predictable thing about me is that I will choose love for myself, for others, for those closest to me, and for those I don't even know. I will always work to keep my heart open even when it wants to close. You may not know if I'll have a glass of wine with you at dinner or if I'll order a ribeye or a cauliflower steak, but you can know that I will give you unconditional love whenever I am able to. And honestly, I'm okay with that. I really am. Right now, we need a massive change. We need a massive global evolution. We need more people to start choosing love. That's what I'm here to do. To inspire you to choose it for yourself, for others, for the earth, for all that is. I'm here to show you that when you do, life is not only more enjoyable, it's actually freer for everyone. Take a look around. It's not our love that has gotten the world to the state that it's in. It's our fear. We've all been choosing fear for so long, and if we don't start choosing love, well, we can already see what's happening. We're destroying our planet, we're killing each other, we're taking away each other's human rights. This isn't God's doing, this isn't the universe's doing, this is our doing, collectively. And we all need to wake up and change, together. Only once we collectively take responsibility are we able to truly change it. And I do see it happening. I do. I see the change happening all around me. The conversations I've been having with random strangers, with my Uber drivers, with my bank teller today. We're getting there. Slowly, perhaps, but I can't be the judge of that. And I am so grateful because I have a vision of this world that's different than the one I'm living in. And I know we'll get there eventually, one way or another. Whether it's in this lifetime or not, it doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is that I do my part. And so I ask you, are you afraid of change? Are you resisting change right now of some kind? And if you are, why are you? Is it what I said? Is it because it feels out of control? If so, what do you feel you need control over? Do you not feel okay inside that you feel like you need to cling and arrange all the factors in your outside world to give you that feeling of safety? What would happen if you just loosen the reins a tiny bit on that control horse and let yourself see what happened? What if you let go a tiny little bit from trying to keep it all so perfectly together all the time? And you just let yourself go. You let yourself get messy instead of perfect. You let yourself experience all the emotions you're locking away deep down inside of you. You screamed as loud as you could when you were angry, and you sobbed uncontrollably when you were hurt. You let yourself try new things, new foods, new thoughts. You stopped being who you think the world wants you to be, and you just choose to be who you want to be. Just for a little bit. What do you think would happen? And look, this is totally a physician heal thyself moment, just so you know. I need to constantly remind myself of all of this, to give myself permission, to encourage myself to relinquish this control. Choosing love, choosing the unknown, is relinquishing all our control. But I always remind myself, there is nothing in my outside world that can make me feel unsafe. I have safety. And if I look at my own experience, everything has always worked out. Even if it didn't look like it at the time. Even if it didn't look like it on paper. And I'm gonna bring it back to my everything now. I'm gonna bring it back to good old gratitude. With gratitude, I can accept all the seasons of life because I know that they're just natural cycles. I can be grateful for the dark days because I know it means there will be equal or greater lighter ones coming. I can be grateful because I know everything is temporary. And if things aren't changing, then I know I've become stagnant. I can be grateful for the awareness of my need for control. I can be grateful when my perfectionism pops up because it tells me that there's something I need to look at inside. Be grateful for change. Find gratitude in someone else's change. Especially find gratitude in your own willingness to change and in theirs. It's the catalyst for everything. It's the catalyst and the backbone of growth. Real, authentic growth. Growth is evolution. Evolution is change. This is the only constant in life. The sooner you can embrace that, the sooner you can embrace the unknown, the sooner you'll start to soar. Truly, you will take off and you will soar in this life. And so, maybe that can be our end prompt this week. Can you think of a time, even if it is this very moment, that you or someone in your life made a change that led to some major growth? Maybe it was a change that inspired you, or maybe it was a change that you did that inspired someone else. Can you think of that moment, that time? Can you hold it in your heart and feel real, genuine gratitude for it? And can you say thank you and really mean it? Alrighty. Thank you again so much for tuning in today. Thank you for all your feedback so far on this podcast. I love doing this. I really do. So please always keep your feedback coming. It means the world to me. Alrighty. Until next time, much love. Bye for now. Thanks so much for checking out today's episode. If you resonated with what you heard, hit that subscribe button and maybe send it to someone who you think might need to hear today's message. If you want to stay up to date and connect with us on the socials, our Instagram handle is @GratitudeGrowthPodcast. Until next time, stay grateful and keep growing.